I never thought I'd be the type of person to cheat, let alone with my father-in-law. But when it happened, it wasn't just a moment of weakness. It was years of buried emotions and loneliness finally breaking through. My husband was always distant. Work, stress, and the routine of life had pushed us apart. His father, on the other hand, had always been kind and attentive to me in ways my husband wasn't. At first, it was innocent, a conversation here, a shoulder to lean on there. I told myself it was just friendship. One evening, after my husband was away on a business trip, my father-in-law stopped by unexpectedly. I was feeling vulnerable, neglected, and craving connection. I let him in. The next thing I knew, the emotional barrier I'd built around myself crumbled. That night turned into something I never imagined. The guilt was overwhelming. I kept it a secret, afraid of what it would mean for my marriage and family. But what hurt more was the emotional attachment that grew between us. It wasn't just about physical desire. It was about feeling seen and valued in a way I hadn't felt for a long time. When my husband finally found out, the fallout was devastating. Not just between me and him, but within the whole family. Trust shattered, everyone took sides, and the line between love and betrayal blurred. This story isn't about glorifying the affair, but about how complicated and painful emotional needs can be, especially when they cross forbidden boundaries. It taught me that infidelity is rarely black and white. It's a tangled web of secrecy, loneliness, and human frailty. At first, I thought I could keep the secret locked away in a tiny corner of my mind, like it never happened. But every time I looked at my husband, I felt like I was wearing a mask. The man I married was still there, but between us was a wall of silence and suspicion I didn't know how to break down. I knew deep inside that hiding the truth was a ticking time bomb, but fear held me hostage. Fear of losing everything, of hurting those I loved, and of facing the shame of what I'd done. The most difficult part was my relationship with my father-in-law. After that night, the dynamic shifted drastically. We couldn't pretend it hadn't happened, but we both kept our distance, too scared to acknowledge the forbidden connection, yet unable to fully let go. My father-in-law, whom I once saw as a kind, stable figure, became a reminder of my guilt. At family gatherings, I avoided his gaze, but when I caught his eyes lingering on me, I saw something I hadn't expected: regret, sadness, and maybe even a hint of longing. It was as if we were both trapped in this silent, painful secret that neither of us wanted to own but couldn't deny. Meanwhile, my husband began to sense something was wrong. His usual aloofness turned into suspicion. He asked questions, tried to reach me emotionally, but I was too afraid to be honest. One night, after weeks of tension, he confronted me. The words I dreaded to say finally spilled out. The truth about that night, about my feelings of loneliness, and about the terrible mistake I made. His reaction was everything I feared. Hurt, betrayal, and anger flashed across his face. But beneath it all, I saw a crack of vulnerability, like he, too, was grappling with years of neglect and emotional distance that neither of us had addressed. The truth didn't just break his heart, it shattered the foundation of our marriage. We went through a storm of emotions, yelling, tears, silence. My husband stopped trusting me, and I couldn't blame him. The man who once held my heart now looked at me like a stranger. But amidst the chaos, something unexpected happened. We started to talk, really talk about what had driven us apart in the first place, about the loneliness we both felt, about the needs we ignored. My father-in-law, on the other hand, withdrew from the family gatherings altogether. The man who had once been a pillar of strength became a ghost in our lives. I learned later from my husband that his father was battling his own guilt and confusion, questioning how things had spiraled so far out of control. The family was fractured, caught in a painful web of secrets and broken trust. I often wondered why this happened, why I let myself get involved with someone so close to my husband. Part of me believes it was about unmet emotional needs, a craving for attention and affection that I wasn't receiving. Another part knows it was a terrible lapse in judgment, fueled by loneliness and a lack of communication. The hardest lesson was realizing that infidelity isn't just about sex or betrayal. It's about how fragile human connections can be when people stop communicating, stop caring, or stop feeling valued. My story is a painful reminder that emotional neglect can open doors to complicated situations that hurt everyone involved. Rebuilding my marriage wasn't easy. Trust had to be earned, step by painful step. My husband and I started couples therapy, a safe space where we could explore our feelings without judgment. We learned to listen, really listen, to each other's pain and fears. Slowly, the emotional distance began to close. The process was long and fraught with setbacks, but it showed me the power of forgiveness and the importance of facing problems head on instead of running away. As for my father-in-law, time kept us apart. I realized some lines, once crossed, leave permanent scars. Our relationship could never go back to what it was, but with time, the bitterness softened into cautious respect. I understood that we were both victims of circumstances and our own mistakes. Looking back, I don't know if this story has a neat ending. Life rarely does. But it forced me to confront uncomfortable truths about love, loyalty, and the human need for connection. It taught me that no relationship is perfect, and sometimes people make mistakes that hurt deeply, not because they want to, but because they're lost and broken inside. If I could give one piece of advice to anyone facing emotional neglect or loneliness in a relationship, it would be this: don't wait for things to fall apart before you speak up. Don't let silence grow into a chasm. Reach out, communicate honestly, and don't be afraid to ask for help. I let my father-in-law in, both literally and metaphorically, and it changed everything. It was a painful chapter in my life, but one that ultimately opened my eyes to the complexity of human emotions and the resilience of love when it's willing to fight for a second chance.